Good morning, it's Monday. We're live in Boulder. I'm great to see you. Let's start our week off together, moving well. And beginning of February. So there's still a big emphasis on kind of the off season. We're not racing for a few more months. Focus here. If you are currently racing, whether it be traveling for races or some ski races or snowshoes, this should serve you really, really well either way, right? So let's set with a nice anchored stance. The anchored stance means your heels are outside or lateral to your toes. And the fifth metatarsal, which is your pinky toe, that whole stripe, that whole line of the foot is parallel to the other foot. So if you do that narrow, it may, on some of you, if you're new, it may be putting you into kind of this knock-kneed position. I don't want you to try to fix it and pull out or anchor to the out. Just kind of let that foot and hip start getting used to that position, okay? So we're not trying to force anything out, and we're really not trying to force anything in. We're just thinking about alignment. So the outside of the feet, the fifth metatarsal on each side, no matter the shape of your feet, I want you to parallel your feet. Some of you have a wider forefoot, and it's going to look almost weird when you look down because you're used to standing in external rotation, right? So let's just, for the sake of our mobility, we're going to anchor the heels outside of the toes. Take a nice big breath and pull the ribs off the hips. Don't shrug your shoulders. And right there, we're just going to push the hips back. So we've got a little bit of a hinge, 2 to 3 inches to the back, and all we're going to do is put that right hip to the midline, and the right shoulder follows along like we have a box between the shoulders and the hips. So if my hip stops and my upper back keeps going, that's what we're trying to avoid. So we just want hips and shoulders to be moving as one piece as we just gently glide the hips to the midline. And this is just allowing us to see and assess the level of tightness happening in the lateral aspect of the hips, because lateral tightness will create inhibition in internal rotation, or just you allowed it to go into internal rotation. And I'll deal with that in just a second, but it's really important when it comes to both cycling and running and walking. So just nice and easy there. Then we're going to add a hand driver, which adds a little bit of load. Okay, hips to the back, feet are still anchored. We're just going to take that right side into the midline, and we're just going to add a reach to the front and to the lateral. We're not reaching way over here, not side bending. We're just going to take the shoulder, same, it stops when the hip stops, and then extend the arm. So hip stops, extend the arm, we add load, you're going to start feeling that activation in the same side. So if I'm reaching to the left or reaching to the right, my right hip is starting to activate and switch on a little bit more. Right there, and reach. It's a hand driver. Right hip to the midline, right hand reach, anterior lateral. Left and reach left. Now we're going to add a little bit more hinge out of that. So we keep that same little bit of hinge, rotate right to the midline, reach right, and then push back just a little bit into that. Reach left, push back left. But the chest stays pretty tall. Right hip to the midline, right hand reach, push into it. Left hip, left reach, push into it. Couple more of these. There we go, starting to get smooth. Right side, hip stops, we push back into that left hip, add the load, little counterbalance, come right back out of it. We don't want to force into, end range. So end range means if I go any further, I'm going to fall apart. We want to stay short of end range. We want to stay in a comfortable range of motion and see if we can achieve the motion that we're asking for. Okay, half kneeling position, right knee is down, right arm is out front, left arm is back, and just try to make your body disappear, right? Right there, hand to the front, hand to the back. It's like there was a wall there. And then just come back and we'll go the other side. This knee stays straight ahead, left knee is up, left arm out, right arm back, and we're gonna fight for this. So keep that left knee lateral, and you're probably gonna feel a little bit of tugging in the adductor, the inner thigh, right? Let's do that same reach on the other side. Right knee is up. We're gonna start with the left arm forward, right arm back, like we're grabbing a wall. Go ahead and look into the wall, turn your head right down the middle, and just nice, easy. This knee shouldn't move in or out, that lead knee. And then gently breathe into that. Right knee in front, right arm right down the midline, left arm to the back. And with that one, the right knee stays lateral, and we get that little gentle tugging in the adductor. A lot of times when I do this with my athletes, we're doing it on the wall. So if you have a wall, let's go right knee directly next to the wall, left knee up, and we're going to take left knee up, left arm on the wall, and right hand off the wall. The nose is 1 inch from the wall. And from right there, we keep that left knee away. Nice and easy there. And then we can bring the back arm all the way to the front. And then we're going to take the top arm all the way to the back. Bring that front arm all the way back. Bring that arm back around, all the way back, and all the way forward. Oops, flipped off a line. And we just want that perfect position. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So we've got left knee directly on the wall, right knee is up, and you're only about 2 or 3 inches from the wall. And the first thing we're going to do, right knee's here, right hand forward, left hand back. Nose 1 inch from the wall. Hold that nice and strong. This knee stays away from the wall. Do not let it collapse in, and don't let it fall out. From right there, we bring the back arm forward and bring that all the way through. Bring that arm all the way back, all the way up, all the way up, all the way back, and all the way back. So that is something you can play with all week, right? You can play with that and start to really do it. We can do this same motion. Let's go into a split stance. It's a comfortable split stance. 50-50 weight distribution. And from right here, we're just going to keep the right arm to the front and the left arm to the back. So we just do that nice. My chest is directly over my hip, and we're just standing nice and tall, and we can front bend into that, push the hip back, and come right back. So we just work that hinge, push the hip back. See, the first movement is left hip to the back, maintain the position through the upper body, and we take that into that front bend and into the hinge. Okay, this is always going to be considered that hip hinge. Having a really good hip hinge is really important to getting under load, getting stronger, riding your bike, sitting down, and getting up. Okay, right leg in front, stand up nice and tall, pull the ribs off the hips, just decompress. Take that left arm to the front, take that right arm to the back. Push into the ball joint of the big toe of the right leg. And chest is just gently directly over the right hip. And we just take a nice big breath there. We're going to hinge and then come right back. We're going to hinge and then come right back. Nice and easy. Good. All right, let's go go into another wide stance. Anchor your stance, heels outside of toes. We're going to work the hinge, pull the ribs off the hips, create space between your ribs and hips. We're working the hinge, and as we hinge, fingertips to the ground, okay? Ooh, my left hip is getting better. Okay, right there, let's keep the space between the ribs and the hips. You can use your measuring sticks to ensure that you're not losing the space and rounding through your spine. Today, we just want to have a nice wide stance, maintain, see if you can touch. This is a measuring stick for you. Can you, with a comfortable wide stance, pull the ribs off the hips, reach down, hold the integrity of the spine, and come right back up? Okay, we're just going to do 5 of those together. Here we go. 1. If your hips are functioning nicely, you should be able to get into this position. 2, over time. If you can't, just stop short and come right back up. 3, 4, and 5. Super encouraging for me that my hips are starting to feel much, much better. Okay, let's work the hinge out of this split stance pose. Right leg in front of left. And right there, we're going to actually use the measuring sticks. Thumbs on the bottom rib, pinkies on the hip bones. Pull the ribs off the hips. And we're just going to push back. Maintain nice connection with the ground with that lead foot. Come right back up because that's what's going to move us in and out of that posture. Okay? Pull the ribs off the hips. Get nice and tall through the crown of the head. Push your hips back. Come right back up. We're going to do 5 reps of hinging on the right hip. 3, pressing into the ball joint of the big toe and the right leg. 4, good, 1 more. Hinge, right back up. You do not have to hinge much further than 45-degree spine angle. That's a very good spine angle and to be strong in. Doesn't mean you can't go further. Just means that that's a good spine angle and we want to practice it. Left leg in front of right. Thumbs on the bottom rib, pinkies on the hip bones. That ensures that we keep the integrity of the spine. Keep the shoulders down. Hinge. Press into the ball joint of the big toe on the left leg. Establish strength on that left leg. This is like a single leg exercise if you can focus on that stability and strength of the lead leg. Hold strong. 3, push your hips back. You can shift your hips back. Push the hips back. 4, good. 1 more, push the hips back. Good, and 5. When we're in this split stance, let's go back to the right leg. We want the back heel lateral to the toes. This is putting this hip into internal rotation immediately. And when we go into extension, which is the back leg being long, we want internal rotation of that hip. If when you go into extension, you fall into external rotation, it means you're going to have to swing that leg kind of around when you're running. So we want to practice that position. That the heel is lateral, this hip is in internal rotation. So using those same principles, push the hip back, rotate in just a little bit, and then add the arm. And you can see I'm straight out from my right shoulder. My left hand is directly in front of my right shoulder and come back. That's the only amount of rotation we need through the upper body. So the first move is going to be to hinge, drop that back hip in, reach out in front. You feel that glute load. It's a hand driver. It's a counterbalance. When I put load out front, hinge, it switches on and creates muscle function on the backside. Let's go the other side. Left leg in front of right. Take a nice big breath. Pull the ribs off the hips. Hinge just a little bit. Strong in that left leg. Right hip rotates. Right arm directly in front of the left shoulder. And come right back, right? So you don't always need measuring sticks once you start feeling that elevation and that tensegrity in the lift. And reach and come back. Hip goes in, hinge. Well, you can hinge and hip goes in. You're going to get more rotation if you hinge first. Hinge, rotate, and reach. Good. All right, let's go back to that wide stance. This time, we're going to stay on we're going right back where we've been, which is like a straight leg deadlift, but it's a wide stance. So we're just pushing the hips back, keep the chest up, If you want to keep your measuring sticks, it's just going to look like this, and then you're going to reach and you're like, am I low enough, right? Nice big breath. Don't underestimate how big a role the diaphragm, that big dome-like muscle, plays in the stability of the lower body. 2 more. 1. And good. All right, let's take it into a squat. So that's kind of a straight leg deadlift. If I have my weights and I'm doing a straight leg deadlift, I want to be anchored in my lower body. I'm going to work the hinge and I'm going to have load, right? So a lot of times if you come to Mobility Monday, just know that this is exactly what it feels like to do a strength session with me as well. So we're going to take a bar and we're going to work off mobility into that same straight leg deadlift. So there's so many different ways that mobility and strength come together to create more ease in our daily movements. Okay, so let's go ahead and take that, get that bar out of the way. Let's go ahead and take that stance a little bit narrower, just outside of shoulder width. And we're just going to take the feet, anchor out. So heels are now medial to the toes. Thumbs, this is short wing. As we go down into the squat, hands are going to come forward into that counterbalance. We're coming right back out of it. We just have 5 squats. 2. You can reach up just a little bit. 3. 4. And if my squat looks weird at all, I don't know if it does or not. 5. And rest. I popped a couple of bursts of playing basketball last week. So I think on the upside, I felt like playing basketball and I felt a little bit more like my old self. Yeah, my knee wasn't quite ready for all of the change of direction. It was a weird little injury actually, but it's come around, it's healing fast. Okay, ready? We're gonna go 1 more set of 5 squats. Thumbs here, pull the ribs off the hips, squat and reach. We got 5. 2, 3, 4, clicks every time, and 5, and good. Shake that out. We're going to the mat. Nice job, guys. Okay, setting the anchor down low. Knees together, toes together, heels apart. Let's pull the toes towards the shins. We're going to actually pump the gas pedal with the lower legs, working through the ankles and feet. Good. And those of you who can, let's spread the toes. I'm not very good at that. Let's go 5 of those. 2, spread the toes every time. 3, just do the best you can. 4, 1 more. And 5, and that just ignites the connection between the brain and the toes. The toes have a job, right? They have the job to stabilize. Each toe has a job. That's why we go barefoot, not socks. All right, knees together, toes together, heels apart. And we're going to go right into an anchored bridge. So from this position, you might have a little bit of space under your back, and that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. I want you to be your natural position here. We're not forcing anything. From right here, let's pull the shoulders away from the hips. From the supine position, just doing everything you can to get space between the sternum, the breastbone, and the pubic bone. And just kind of pull that apart. You can even take your fingers and work them around the bottom of the rib cage to just create a little bit of space between the fascia that connects the ribs to the pubic symphysis and separates it from the diaphragm and the transverse abdominal. So keep the knees together, toes together, heels apart. And from right there, we're putting the hands right next to the hips. Get the wrists and elbows off the ground, push the heels into the ground, and we're coming up into an anchored bridge. So pull the toes towards the shins, push the heels into the ground, keep the knees strong, and keep the hips off the ground, and then relax. The hips are only coming 1 inch off the ground. Some of you are going to feel your hamstrings light up, and some of you might feel your glutes. But we're going to do 2 more sets. Hold it for 2 breath cycles. So knees together, push the hands onto the ground, wrists and elbows off the ground, push the heels into the ground, lift the hips. Now take 2 big breaths. and come back. Just going to give my low back just a little bit of a moment by bringing the knees up. That shortens the hip flexors. I had some good bike rides this weekend, so acknowledging that my hip flexors probably are a little bit tight this morning, and therefore I need to take time to work them back into the game in a nice lengthened position. So when your knees are further away from your hips, unlike this shortens the hip flexors, this lengthens them and asks them to work in a lengthened position, okay? And that's a good thing because we want it to be strong in all positions. Knees together, toes together, heels apart. Last one of these, anchored bridge. 2 big breaths. And relax. So for those of you who cramped with your hamstrings when you did that, we're going to give you a little bit more of a chance to be successful with the knees up, feet directly under the knees, and we're just going to lift into this bridge. Keep your knees in, nice and strong, knees in. When you push your knees together, you'll start to feel more glute activation because they like working alongside the adductor group. When the adductors are firing, the glutes are firing as well. Hold that up, knees together, just gently squeeze those knees. Couple of big breaths. And good. All right, guys, that's the end of Mobility Monday today. I'm a little bit fired up. Hopefully I didn't give you too much information, but it's kind of my jam to teach and coach and want to bring you on a journey. So thank you again for coming today on Monday. I've got a serious special going right now. This super sweet deal or something, I'll put it in the notes of the workout today. But it's basically going to be, you can be part of my premium strength group for 6 months, but only pay for 3. I just want to try to ease some of the uncertainty around the world right now. Make it easy to take care of yourself, a little bit less expensive. I hope you all have an amazing day. Again, I'll put it in the show notes what the code is and where to email, and we'll get you all set up. I'm a pretty small operation, so everything has to be done manually, but we can get it done. All right, everybody. Take care of each other. Be kind. Peace.